Hello and welcome to another episode of Smalltown Sportstalk. As always, I'm Jonah Freeman with co-host Andrew Will, and today we have another special guest, Andrew.
Jonah, you're absolutely right, and we are both incredibly excited to welcome this guest because we have been trying, it's been a goal of ours to get every collegiate men's basketball coach on our podcast from the state of Indiana. And we get to add another one today, and we're really proud to introduce him. He was born in Iowa, went to college at the University of South Dakota, has been an assistant all over the place, and is the second winningest coach in Indiana State University history. We're excited to welcome Greg Lansing. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Really excited to have you. First things first, we always ask, during COVID-19, how have you been holding up?
Actually, pretty good. Tried to be as positive as possible, and with everybody going through this together, we've really tried to do a lot of things with our guys on Zoom calls and just staying in touch with them individually. We've been doing some very educational, some great things. Obviously, with the racial unrest, we've talked a lot about that. We've had guest speakers, a lot of exercises, and just going through things together as a team. Rather do it in person, but we can't do that yet. Hopefully, we're moving closer to that. But I think our guys have been outstanding. They've been very patient and willing to do the things that we've gone through as a team in this new normal here. So I think we've handled it as well as we can. I know we're just all excited to get back and get together on campus.
Right.
We'll get back to your team, but what have you been doing to stay occupied? Like, what are you watching?
What am I watching?
Yeah,
a lot of Netflix at night. I know that. We're going through. My wife and I watching a lot of Netflix at night, but with
what are some of your favorite shows?
Oh, geez. Obviously Ozark. We loved Peaky Blinders, Homeland. We've gone through a lot of them, and we're searching for new ones all the time. So if you got any good recommendations, let me know. But I've also taken it since what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis and to so many others. I've been trying to educate myself as much as possible and go back through some history and watching some very powerful pieces online and then talking about it with our guys.
Right. And then I want to ask a question just about recruiting. I mean, obviously it's a difficult time with that, just restrictions with the NCAA, all that. In a typical year, what do you like to look for as far as like attributes and guys? What do you like to add to your team?
You look for a lot of different things. Obviously, you want somebody that's a good basketball player, but I like guys that are great teammates. You can really tell how they interact with their teammates. I'm not a fan of negative body language. Want guys that really play hard. You want the best players available. They need to be able to pass, dribble, and shoot. And you want good athletes. But, we always try to build a team. It's not just about an accumulation of talent. Where we try to build a team and guys that are going to fit well together. And we, our staff, guys that on our staff, they've just done a heck of a job with it. And I'm excited to see, we got 6 new guys, so I'm excited to see how we can put this thing together.
Right. You've been hammering a lot of the in-state talent recently, bringing in Jake Laravia, Kobe Barnes, some of those guys. How has the pandemic affected all that? Like, is it a different feel when you can't meet face-to-face with the guys? Does that make it difficult?
It is, and, we've done some Zoom calling. We've made some videos of our staff, like a virtual tour, and done all of that. We've already got a commitment in the next class. And, we always try to start at Terre Haute and work our way out. And we've done a great job we got several Indiana All-Stars on our team. We just had one graduate in Bronson Kessinger, but
right.
I think they've really done a good job within state. And in a state, you're talking to all the coaches in Indiana. It is so heavily recruited by schools from all over the country. You
Right.
can't just take a kid because he is from Indiana, but we've certainly been fortunate to get the ones that we've got. And it means a lot to them. They want to come to their state school. They know the history of Indiana State, and they want to really come in here and make their own mark.
Right. And then one last thing on the pandemic. Do you guys have an idea of how you're going to start practices back up at the Terre Haute campus, or is it just a waiting game?
Well, it's a waiting game in the fact that you hope everything goes well.
Right.
We're a school. We have got an outstanding trainer, Connor Burton, and our head trainer, Kellen Norris, who comes. He went to school at Indiana State. So did Connor, but he was with the Colts. Our team doctors are outstanding. They've worked awfully hard on this, and we got to go through our protocols. Our phase one, we're in phase 0. Then you go to phase 1 and phase 2, and then we can get the guys working together. But the biggest thing is they get them to campus, get them their quarantine for 7 days, and then being able to come into our facilities.
I'm glad to hear that. And from the pandemic, and hopefully you get into next basketball season. But you mentioned you got 6 guys coming in, 6 new guys. What are your expectations for the upcoming year?
Well, we want to win the Missouri Valley Conference. We want to win the tournament. And we want to go to the NCAA tournament. Those are always our goals.
Those are some good goals.
Yeah. I mean, you want to. Our league is so tough and so good. Our non-conference schedule is always really difficult, but we want to be prepared when we get into the league, so we're ready for those games. But having 6 new guys is different from us, and we have 2 fifth-year transfers, and they're in important positions for us at scoring guard and point guard. And those, getting those guys to campus, I'm excited about that, so we can get with them. But we got 2 guys that have been very successful, played in big games, in big atmospheres, NCAA tournaments. So that those guys are going to be awfully important to us. And then getting 3 freshmen coming in, 2 of them from Indiana, and then a point guard out of Frisco, Texas, and a junior college big man from Butler County. So it's a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything. But like I said, we're trying to build a team, and we lost 2 all-conference caliber guards that we had to replace, and we think we did that.
Right. I want to touch on upcoming sophomores because you had a lot of talented freshmen last year. I mentioned them early: Jake Laravia, Kobe Barnes, Trey Williams. People like Jake Laravia, people think you got to steal with him. What do you expect out of him year 2, and what do you think he really needs to work on to expand his game, expand his range?
Well, I mean, Jake is an outstanding teammate. He's really good, a really good basketball player with a tremendous work ethic, and that's just the tip of the iceberg with him. He's got some leadership skills like you want guys to have, but he's at the upper tier of that. He's built different. You want guys just like Jake, and then he just came in a couple weeks ago, and he's 6'9", 230, so he's 15 pounds heavier than what he was last year, and his skill level's outstanding. I mean, he's like a guard at 6'9". He can score inside and out. He's athletic. He's got a great IQ, and he is one tough dude. I mean, he is a competitive guy, and he's got high aspirations for himself and his team. And I thought he was the best freshman in the league last year. We've got very good. That's to take nothing away from very good players on other teams, but Jake's he's a confident guy, and he's looking forward to getting going with his team.
Coach, speaking of your upcoming season, I went to Monrovia. We go to Monrovia High School, actually, and I was on the sideline, able to watch Cooper Neese during his sectional game. And Cooper Neese, one of your players, I want to ask you about him. How is he doing? What has he been like improving as a player? What's his role going to be this upcoming year?
Well, his role is going to be like everybody else. It's what you earn. And we think we're going to be 1 through 14, be very, very deep and competitive at every position. So it's those are the best teams we've had, where our practices are highly competitive and guys fighting for playing minutes. And and Coop's right in that mix. You know, he's a part-time starter last year for us as a sophomore. And then when we got to the conference, he was coming off the bench, 6th, 7th guy. And he's a prolific scorer, as everybody knows how he was in high school. And he's expanded all areas of his game since he's been with us, you know, and he's a good teammate and just continued to grow. You know, he's continued to grow, being as successful as he was scoring the basketball in high school, then originally going to Butler and coming over to us on that. We're excited to have him for a couple more years and see what he brings to us.
Right, and then I want to mention one more guy in particularly, and that's Tyreek Key. You had mentioned you lost 2 really good players, and it was incredible to watch Tyreek and Jordan Barnes play and share the floor last year. What do you expect out of Tyreek now? He's kind of taken the role as that main leader, that main scorer. What are you excited about with him?
Yeah, as a sophomore, he led the league in scoring, and then last year I think he was 2nd, and he's been back-to-back first-team all-league. You know, and that's pretty impressive in what he's doing there, and he's just climbing up the all-time list with his scoring, and he knows that he wants his team to win too. You know, and I think he's going to accept any role that he has. He's taken it very personally to become a better defender, and he's really bought into that, working hard at it. And I'll say this about Tyreek: there's no one that works any harder at his craft than him. I mean, he absolutely lives in the gym, before, after practice, in the morning, at night. He lives, eat, and breathes it. He really does, and I'm excited for his senior year and to see what kind of things we can accomplish.
Right.
So, Coach, in your coaching career, you obviously played at the University of South Dakota. You took an assistant role there. You took a trip to the high school level for a couple of years. 2 stints at Indiana State, at Iowa for a stint as an assistant before becoming the head coach of Indiana State University. I want to ask you, how did you get into coaching, and who were some of your role models?
Well, my dad's a retired Hall of Fame high school coach out of Iowa, so it's really the only thing I really ever wanted to do. So I felt like I've been around a great coach my whole life. I'm just lucky enough that he was my dad, and I've been fortunate enough to grow up in a basketball family, and my path has been a little different. You know, I didn't skip a step. I hit every step on the way up to becoming a head coach, and I really think that helped shape me. I've had outstanding coaches to learn from. My college coach, Dave Boots, Steve Alford there at Iowa, and at the top of that list is Royce Waltman, who's no longer with us. So just been very, very blessed to be in the position I'm in. I've enjoyed every step of it, and it's just like the same thing I'm going to do this year. I'm going to enjoy every day with our guys.
Coach, you mentioned Steve Alford. I've been an IU fan my whole life. I've heard stories about Steve Alford. What was that like being an assistant under him at Iowa?
You know, when he was the head coach at Missouri State, I got to know his dad very well, Sam, because he was an assistant with him. And every time we were out recruiting, Sam and I'd sit and talk and got to know him very well, which eventually helped me get on staff at Iowa. You know, there's a little bit of a wow factor being a coach's kid and knowing he's a coach's kid and what he accomplished as a high school player and as a college player and as an NBA player. So he's a hard-working, obviously unbelievable basketball IQ. I'm very fortunate to spend 7 years on the bench with him, you know, right down the street from my parents there in Des Moines. So it was, I've always been an Iowa fan growing up. So it was a dream come true. I learned a lot from Coach, and I owe him to this day.
Right. I want to touch on some of your memories now at Indiana State. You and I had talked about it a little before this, and one big thing has to be the 2011 March Madness team. You had a lot of good guys, Jake Odom, Dwayne Lathan, R.J. Maher, and Lucas Idol, both the Idol brothers, actually. Like, what was that like coaching that team? You have any fun stories to tell us?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of fun stories with that team. I mean, it was my first year as a head coach, and you get a freshman like a Jake Odom that eventually turns into a leader of that team, and he helped us win a bunch of ball games there. But the names you mentioned and a lot of others, it was an unbelievable group of young men. It was a true team, and our chemistry was off the charts. We had some bumps earlier in the season that these guys just rallied around. They learned from them. They pulled together. They learned to really fight for each other, fight for the guy that's next to you. And, boy, we got rolling. We again, you're, in the Missouri Valley, and that's when we had Creighton and Wichita. You're playing in great venues against very good basketball teams, very well coached teams. And we just continued to get better. And we got rolling at the end of the season, then went into the tournament and won 3 games in 3 days and got into the NCAA tournament to go to Cleveland and play Syracuse. So there's a lot of special memories with that group, and we're going to honor them at our golf outing this summer. In September, getting all those guys back. So that'll be a lot of fun.
I got to ask, other than that, what's your favorite memory at Indiana State? I know you have a lot of them. You've been inside Assembly Hall and taken down Indiana. You've played in Mackey. I mean, you've got all kinds of things. What would you say is your favorite memory other than that 2011 team?
Yeah, we've won at Indiana, won at Notre Dame. We've beaten a lot of ranked teams. But you got to look at the winning that game, the championship game against the Conzo Martin championship team at Missouri State.
Right.
We beat them to qualify for the tournament, and I get emotional when I think about it and talk about it. But going into that locker room and seeing the looks on those guys' face and just how happy they were. That's why I'm still coaching, because I love seeing our guys experience such exciting events and doing it together. It's not just an individual thing. You're accomplishing something special as a team. So I owe that group a lot, and I think about it all the time.
That is undoubtedly a special moment for you and Indiana State. You mentioned earlier Iowa, growing up there, and then you got to be an assistant there for 7 years. That was such a big honor. Growing up, were you a big Hawkeyes fan? I just want to ask a couple questions, like what professional teams do people from Iowa cheer for, and who did you cheer for growing up?
Well, the Hawkeyes are the pro team in that state. So, yeah, I grew up a Hawkeye fan, and in every sport, too. I mean, we're a sports family. I played 3 sports in high school, so I loved all those sports. And then if you're growing up in Iowa and you're an Iowa fan, and you got the wrestling team, too. So I got to be good friends with those guys and work out in their facility there. So, growing up a Hawkeye and being able to sit on that bench and be a part of Carver Hawkeye Arena and in the Big Ten, and Hawkeye fans are as good as it gets in this country, and still cherish that as a part of my upbringing and growth as a coach. Some great times there, and I always want the Hawkeyes to do well. Indiana State and the Hawks, but your pro teams, you're looking at Chicago, you're looking at St. Louis, and it's funny. I was always a Colts fan when they were the Baltimore Colts.
Yeah.
And shoot, I get lucky enough to come over here to Indiana State when the Colts moved over here. So that's kind of neat because I've always been a Colts fan.
That's pretty sweet. So a Colts fan. Well, you mentioned Chicago. Did you watch much of The Last Dance?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody did. I was a Jordan guy. I mean,
Really?
Oh yeah, you have to respect somebody that worked like he did, how competitive he was, and his strive for greatness. I was fortunate enough to be at a couple their training camps 2 different years, and just how hard he worked in every practice. And then practice was done, it wasn't over. He's grabbing Scotty, he's grabbing Harper, he's grabbing any of their guys to just go play one-on-one and just get after him. And he was relentless. I mean, he never let down. I remember.
So the stories are true.
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah. Well, I saw it firsthand, and you're just in awe of that guy. And when Roy Williams said when Michael flipped on that switch, he never turned it off. That's true. I mean, he was on it from way before practice till way after practice.
You made a good point. You gotta respect that. Like I've grown up in the LeBron James era, and I'm a huge Boston Celtics fan. So, while I might not like him, you're absolutely right. You gotta respect someone who is just that talented. And it sounds like he worked very hard. Uh, who were some of those players that you cheered for growing up as a kid?
Well, I hate to say it, but I was a Philadelphia 76er fan and Dr. J.
Oh,
You know, I was not a Larry Bird Celtics guy. I was kind of on the other side of that, but
wow.
um, gotten to know Larry very well, and I've told him that story, and we've laughed about it. But he's been good to me. But yeah, Dr. J, you know, Jordan. You're talking about LeBron. I'm a LeBron guy too, and really lucky. A good friend of mine was their GM, David Griffin, who's now with the running the Pelicans. So I've seen several finals playoff games with Cleveland. I've seen LeBron, how he carries himself in practice, and he's much like Jordan was. You know, just you go in there, you go to work. I mean, you're in there, you're working at your craft to get better. So, you know, I've seen up close and personal some of the best, the greatest. Well, Jordan is the greatest, and LeBron's right up there.
What do you
Uh-huh.
think LeBron
Well,
has to do
that's
to pass Jordan?
I don't know if he can pass him in a lot of people's view, just because guys like my age, you know, we grew up in that era with the Jordan. I don't, you know, all this talk about that stuff. You're talking just two of great play. I mean, great, as good as it's ever played, and
Right.
as good athletes as ever played. I don't like to compare them. Let's enjoy and celebrate how great Michael was, and I think we got to do that with the Last Dance, and just let LeBron be LeBron. I don't think you got to talk about Michael. They can't play each other. He and Kobe can't play each other. I mean, it's they're great in their era and what they're doing, and I don't get into all that comparison stuff. I really appreciate their strive for greatness.
Right.
That's pretty special that you've gotten to be up close and personal watching each of them. And good point that we should just try it and enjoy our experience with each of them.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's true.
this
Those teams couldn't play; they can't play each other, so we don't know.
uh-huh. But it runs full circle, as you said. You cheered for Dr. J, who had some memorable moments with Larry Bird. Now that you coach at the university where Larry Bird played, what is that like? You mentioned you've had gotten to have some conversations with him. What has that been like?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're obviously in awe of a guy like Larry Bird. You know, even though I was maybe pulling for the Sixers, I respected and liked how great Larry was, and getting to know him. And it's really being in Terre Haute. There's 4 or 5 of the '79 team that are right there in the community that I'm friends with, and they're it's like they played 2 years ago. You know, those guys are celebrated and popular, and what they're doing, and I really appreciate how they've been to me personally and our program. They love it, they follow it, they come whenever they can, and it's always great to see those guys.
Has to be. I want to hit a couple more things on college basketball. And I mean, recently we've seen a lot. We've seen the introduction of the G League being an option out of high school. We have seen now transfer rules. A lot of coaches want those adjusted. We have seen people, they want money introduced to college basketball. Do you have
The
any
name,
opinions?
image, likeness
Yeah. Do you have any
clause.
opinions on how all that can shape into the college game?
Well, I don't think any of it's helping the college game, you know, and I think, you know, the Power Five, it's a little bit of the rich get richer. I think players should be able to, you know, do it. And if they can make money off their name and their ability, more power to them. I don't like the transfer stuff, just because, you know, like I talked about, you're trying to build a team, you know, and you
Right.
want, in the Missouri Valley, we're fortunate enough to have those guys for 2 to 4 years all the time. We don't get the one and dones, but it just makes it harder. You know, there's way too many guys transferring. I mean, if they're not playing enough, they're transferring. If the guys aren't willing to work and earn their keep all the time at the place they're at. So I don't think any of it is helping the college game. I love college basketball, but I also love the NBA. And I would not want to any young man that can play professionally and make money off his likeness. I would want them to do that, but and I'll support it. I just think that it's leading away from the quality of the college basketball game.
Right. So do you feel like, in your mind, do you think that players should be able to go straight to the league if they believe they are at that level, do you think they should be able to go straight to the league?
Oh, sure. I mean, I saw, you see LeBron in high school. I mean, you're like,
Right.
yeah, he can go straight to it. Oh, Kobe Bryant, he can do it. But there's been some guys that have slipped through the cracks and not been successful at it. The people around them, the advice they get. I would hate to see someone do that and then them not being able to play college basketball if in case they didn't make it or playing at some level. So I understand it. I get it. There's no perfect system anyway in anything. I mean, it's like in any profession. But I think if they can and if they get drafted, then more power to them.
Right. And then we got one more thing for you. It's what we like to call the 60-second speed round. You have obviously 60 seconds. We've got about 10 questions compiled together. See how many you can get through in 60 seconds. Are you ready?
I'll start the timer.
Okay, let's pressure.
Ready, set, go.
What is your favorite non-basketball activity?
Hanging out with my wife.
Favorite song artist growing up?
Oh, boy, there's a lot of good ones. EPMD.
Favorite movie?
45 seconds.
Pulp Fiction.
All right. Other than Indiana State and Iowa, do you have a college you would cheer for?
Oh, since I'm down here in Scottsdale, I'll say Arizona State.
All right. Favorite all-time player? Jordan?
30 seconds.
Okay. What is your favorite pregame meal / snack?
Oh, my goodness. Pregame meal I eat what the guys eat, chicken breast and pasta.
Favorite shoe brand?
Well, I better say Under Armour.
15.
That's it. That's all I got for you.
We got through with 15 to spare.
I know. I'm sorry.
Got it.
If you could pick a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, man. That's a good one. Super strength, I guess. Man, it'd be nice to be able to just lift whatever you want or move whatever you want at any time.
Greg Lansing, everyone. Super strength. I like to hear it. Thank you so much for joining us and taking your time to join us on Smalltown Sportstalk. I hope you know how much Jonah and I appreciate it. Just thank you.
Well, I appreciate you guys and anytime.
Really glad to have you on. Thank you to our listeners for listening. If you have made it this far, remember to follow us on Twitter at ST2, and you can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and many more. I'm Andrew Willett with Jonah Freeman, and today, Greg Lansing. Thank you for listening. That's ST2.